They weren't able to market their drugs as effectively as they had in the past. So in 2000 through 2007, it was all great. After 2007, they started having issues with marketing. So the next thing, they started partnering with like Johnson & Johnson. That partnership started in 2009. It went well, and then it started to go down. So now fast forward to 2012, 2013, they are now being looked at by companies to be acquired. So there's a company in Ireland trying to acquire them. And then as soon as they saw that, Royalty Pharma said no. It was just like barbarians at the gate. They were like, fuck no, we're not letting you get acquired. We want you. So Royalty Pharma is trying to basically get the shareholders and the board to be on their side and acquire it that way. Mm-hmm. Even if the other company offers more money, they have more leverage because not they like them more, they want to do business with them more. So that's why I'm at right now.
Okay, and so you know what was hostile takeover failed, or was it successful?
It doesn't say.
Attempted. That's what we know so far. So we're basically trying to establish the value of the company because, of course, they see something in it that other.
Okay, and is this a cross-border deal or all American?
It's cross-border.
Yeah, because one of them is the Irish company and the other one.
Okay, well then, cross-border deals need a special approval, both from is Ireland part of the EU? Okay, yep. From the EU and from the Treasury.
Under competition law.
Correct. And somebody else is doing not this deal, but another cross-border deal. And they have to, you go to them for a no names opinion, or it's called something like that. But you go to both of the legal entities with no names, and if these are the facts, how would you rule? And they say, well, as long as there's no taxes being avoided and there's no this, those, that, we'd approve it. But then what happens is there are no secrets or only mysteries. Other farmers find out about it. And they lobby both the EU governing body and the Treasury governing body. We don't like that. You know, it's going to set up a false sense of competition, this, that, and the other thing. So even though they give you a no names, you can do it. At the end, after you've spent 9, 10, 12, 15, 30 months and hundreds of millions and billions, they say no. Which is the case with the other one, because I actually was part of this other one that they did. And it's normally in the pharma. The pharma has got huge strength in lobbying, both from the European side and from the U.S. side. But hostile takeovers are fun.
There's been a lot in, not recent press, but a couple of years back about the U.S. government or some government body seeking to prevent companies merging for the specific purpose of doing a tax inversion, so lowering the tax rate. And I think that actually prevented Pfizer and what was the other one? It was some UK company from merging. They were going to do a tax inversion, be based in Ireland, and some US body, I can't remember which one it was, said no to it, as far as I'm aware. But I think what would be useful, I think, for us also, though, is to kind of get a sense of, because the more I'm at the hardcore, the more I'm realizing, or it's being reinforced, is that it's much easier to get people excited, to get funders excited and all that on a big deal than a small deal. No one gives a shit about a $500,000 deal in the middle of nowhere. So,
well, I mean, not no one, but almost no one.
Yeah, but obviously the larger up, or the bigger the scale, the more likelihood what you're going to come across is a board of directors running a company, as opposed to mom and pop type operations. So how you go about, if you like, infiltrating that board.
Yeah,
to get
but
support.
they have to have already taken the decision to get out. It has to be internal that they're already motivated to sell. You're not going to convince them. Or if you are, it's going to take months, years. You know, like Peltz does, he gets a board member. And we're the slam bam, thank you ma'am methodology. but you're right. It's easier to get people excited about bigger deals. It just is. I mean, it's the same amount of work for $5 million or $50 million. I mean,
where you have a board, as in this case, that they haven't been performing, then maybe it's the case that you start with the biggest shareholder. I don't know.
No, you can, a shareholder. But I mean, now, this is 4 or 5 years ago. But I mean, now they don't let you non-perform or not perform for 4 or 5 years. They 4 or 5 quarters, and they're on you. But they have to take the decision, or a major shareholder has to take the decision, or like a private equity that's already invested in it, or one of these corporate governance guys like Carl Icahn, Peltz, etc. have to take a decision. But you will not, or I won't say you will not. You don't have the time to invest in. Even though the rewards are there, the rewards are huge. You don't have the time to invest. It takes too long. And so, but that's why I tell you to do a small deal, do 3 or 4, 5, 6 small deals. So now you have got equity, and you roll that equity into a big deal. But you're right. I mean, banks get more excited over 50 million or 500 million than 500,000 for sure. But in the United States and in Canada, a lot of this is being done with smaller banks, like the deal that Alex was talking about. The West Bank of West Virginia, whatever the hell it is, and that's why you ask him, what's your credit limit? I would be surprised if that bank's credit limit was more than $5 million, and he's doing a $2 million deal, so you get their attention. But part of the last day and a half are the questions like this, and we're going to answer, and more specifically, what do we do in this market environment when we go back out?
So for situations like this, you have, just like Barbarians at the Gate, it's management versus the board members. So management wants to keep everything the way it is. They don't really necessarily want the company to be sold, whereas the board of directors are doing what they see fit for the show.
Yeah, but the board of directors, if they've been there a long, long time, they don't want to change either. They may pretend and flap their mouth that they want to change. But it's tough to instill change, and if the board deems it that there should be change, what they're really saying is we haven't done such a great job in these last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and if somehow they can get change without them being pinpointed as making or allowing non-performance to become the norm, then you can get them to do it. But that's difficult to do because there'll be some dissident shareholder that comes up and says, look at what's happened all these quarters. You haven't done anything. And then they point that to, of course you bought 2 new corporate jets and you did this, and you have the shareholders or the board of directors meeting at Saint-Tropez and Monte Carlo. And when that all comes up, the board members become defensive. And they circle the wagons. And as I've said, nobody circles the wagons better than the British boards. They might have invented circling the wagons. But there's a lot of different reasons why hostile takeovers don't work. But when they do work, and you can get it past the regulatory bodies, often, the survivor. And in hostile takeover, the survivor is not always the one that initiates the hostile takeover. Sometimes they turn the boat around, and they then go after the one.
Pac-Man strategy, correct, or something like that.
Yes, it's called Pac-Man strategy. They go after it, and but as Sally would say, the hostile takeovers are fun because there's normally a lot of animosity. There's a lot of
Well, what establishes the mindset for a hostile takeover? Basically, you see something and it's really undervalued, and it will bring great value to you if you acquire it into your own.
Yeah, and what you can do, on a supplemental basis, a complementary basis, what you can bolt on
or what assets you can sell off.
Yes, and what assets you can sell off, because normally in a hostile takeover, to pay for the takeover, you sell 10, 20, 30, 40% of the asset base to pay for the takeover. But
seems like what happened here is the same thing as Bavarian and the Gates. So as soon as all this started happening with Royalty Pharma, when everything was going great with the Irish people, there were no problems. After Royalty Pharma got involved, the news got involved. And on the last page, before it gets to the numbers, it talks about how the news basically had such a huge impact on this. And public perception, the price of the company,
and
everything
now,
went to shit.
And now news is instantaneous. I mean, all you got to do is, what's trending.
Yeah. The stock ticker.
Yeah. I mean, the whole game has changed. The whole game has changed.
So when you're acquiring big companies like this and the news might get involved, like we had somebody here who got chased by the news, like, do you need a PR person?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, absolutely. And the underdog almost always is represented as being the poor and that the rich guy's taking advantage. Now that's normally true, but I mean in the press with its liberal agenda will support the underdog, and it's not as fake news as President Trump says it is, but there's certainly a lot of disingenuous bullshit. And but I mean, when they were chasing Marcus around, I mean, he was throwing 5 people out, and if it wasn't for the law, he might have thrown them in the street. I don't believe he wanted to pay to have them moved. I don't believe he wanted to get them in a place for 3 years. I don't believe. You've heard him yourself. That's not his personality. But he wound up having to do it, and he paid through the nose. But there was still enough money in the deal, more than enough money for him to come out on top. But
so, what numbers would you think would be best to present to the group that they were asking for? The EBITDA, what numbers?
No. It's how, assuming the deal went through, and how does it change the balance sheet of the joint company from the balance sheet of the one that was going that initiated the hostile takeover? Because hostile takeovers are extremely expensive. On top of it, a lot of money. Okay, so we'll see you guys later.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Okay.